party, or Eben, I guess we can call him Eben. Eben.
That's yep.
They're like, we shouldn't talk to them. And he's like, I'm an ambassador. I'm supposed to talk. And I like that scene with him. And when he listens later on, and when he learns their language, I feel like with him, he's a very curious soul. And so when he says, I'm supposed to talk, I thought that was a really good line that establishes him as a character.
Well, I think right away we're given maybe his worst character trait, right? That he seduced, he stole somebody's wife. So but everything he does after that, even though it's not the easy decision, it's always the right decision.
Oh,
so
wow,
it wasn't easy to go talk to the Vikings, but he did it. It wasn't easy to go on the adventure or the quest with them, but he did it. It wasn't easy for him to figure out a way to keep up with those big guys, but he did it. And so everything and even at the end when he leaves, it might have been easier for him to stay there and just, be assimilated into the culture, Dances with Wolves style. But he always does the right thing. So I think we're really getting that he is the moral compass of this movie.
Oh, wow. I didn't even think of it. Man, you really broke that down.
Oh, I love this movie.
And I do want to say, though, when he first walks into the Vikings, they're having a funeral. But I hate, in movies, medieval parties or Viking parties. So you have Lord of the Rings, you have all these. Whenever you walk into a bar, there's always people laughing really loud, slamming stuff down, eating a big thing of meat, and everyone's patting each other on the back like they just said the greatest joke ever.
I want to say this to you too. It's medieval parties, Viking parties, and Klingon parties.
Oh, really? Klingons just roll like that too?
Klingons, it's just a Viking party, man.
Everyone is laughing. Am I that cynical? It's weird.
No.
I just hate, and remember in Lord of the Rings when he's kind of seeing things, or he's kind of being weird Frodo, and the people
he was
in
always weird Frodo.
And then all those people in the I don't know, the place where Stryker,
the prancing pony,
Aragorn, yeah. They're all just laughing, and I just can't stand it. I hate it.
No, and this may be, I don't know if this will be a popular statement or not. I can't stand those Lord of the Rings movies.
Really?
Oh, they're so long.
Oh, I love them. Dude, every other year I probably watch all of them. With The Hobbit and the other ones, director's cuts.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm standing in awe of you. I've tried. So both Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter, I've tried to get into those series. I just keep falling asleep.
Oh man, I love them. I
can't do it.
When I was working in a theater when I was 19. Let's see. No. That was 2001. So yeah, I was 19, and I would close the theater. So
yeah.
I don't know why, but they always had Lord of the Rings starting at the same time as the last movie. That was about an hour and 45 minutes. So I'd get the entire theater cleared out, lock the doors, and then I'd just go watch the ending of Fellowship of the Ring for the last hour for probably 30 times, because that movie was in the theater forever. So I just love that movie, and I love Sean Bean in that movie. I love the human element. I just think as filmmaking, it was amazing.
I do love Sean Bean, and we're going to get into a deep cut Sean Bean movie a little later on in the podcast.
Oh, really? Oh, I love it. Oh, a deep Sean. Okay, good. I'm looking forward to this. All right, so they sit down, and you know what I like? There's this boat that comes up with some people from, I don't know where, Viking land, and they sit in the mist to make sure that people see them, so they're not a creature. I thought that was a pretty interesting idea.
There was some really cool subtleties, and I think that speaks to the Michael Crichton writing of this whole thing. Right, is that there's these. He definitely did his research, because this was a thing where he was at a lecture, right, and then someone said Beowulf was a boring story that no one would care about anymore. So he took that as a challenge to I'm going to write an interesting Beowulf Viking story, and you're going to love it. And so he wrote
Eaters of the Dead.
Eaters of the Dead. And so he wrote that in response to that. So I think these are some of the intricacies that he would look up, and whereas I think John McTiernan, it would be where's the next action beat. So I think some of that flow we get that is maybe pacing a little bit differently than a normal action movie is the Michael Crichton influence. And I think that's why audience didn't digest it as well as a regular John McTiernan movie.
Did you watch the interview with Vad Kulik, behind the scenes interview? So he said some pretty, what? Do you want me to get into it?
The whole time, no, you do it, but I was going to say the whole time I was watching that, I was like, someone please cast this guy in a Dolph Lundgren biopic.
Yeah, he stays svelte, man.
Yes, he does.
I thought it was interesting how he said McTiernan told a very, what show not tell, but Crichton wrote a tell, just write a writer movie. And I really, as much as I love the finished product, but I think McTiernan's, maybe it was just too grim, maybe too silent, too war heavy. And I think I want to see that movie.
No, there's definitely like the part of you that wants to see when you love something, you want more of it.
Oh, for sure.
Whether it's a good cut or a bad cut, I want to see that cut of it. So one of my all-time favorite movies, hands down, is Billy Jack. Are you aware of Billy Jack?
What's Billy Jack?
So Billy Jack is the most successful independent film of all time. It was the first white guy to ever use karate in a movie. And it was like this very hippie-centered, I think it came out in 1971. And it was about like this half Native American, half white Vietnam War vet whose girlfriend ran a special school for pacifists. It was crazy. You have to watch it. It's fantastic. You would love it. But to make that movie, he first made a movie called Born Losers to finance Billy Jack, and then he made The Return of Billy Jack, and then he made Billy Jack Goes to Washington. And so the three other ones aren't great. However, after that, he made The Return of Billy Jack, or Billy Jack Strikes Again, and he made half that movie and the funding got cut. So there's a half Billy Jack movie out there somewhere that I haven't seen, and oh my goodness, what I wouldn't give to see it.
Oh my! And you know, they were working on a movie called Ernest. They built a ship. Ernest is a pirate or something.
Oh,
Pirate
my
Ernest.
goodness.
And they were filming it, and tragically he passed away. But they had a ship built and everything. They were filming an Ernest movie about him being a pirate.
Right? Isn't that incredible? Don't you just need to see that?
Yeah, give me 13 minutes of it.
Right? Or even the George Miller Justice League movie that just give me the costume tests. Give me that.
Oh man, give me the script read through. Give me the script. That movie would have been fantastic.
Oh, it would have been amazing because George Miller doesn't do anything bad. Babe is fantastic, even though it's about a pig. I
mean, well, that was a Best Picture nominee.
Right?
He made
George
pig.
Miller's the man.
Yeah, he's a beast. He would have done a good one of these, but I still like what McTiernan did.
Yeah.
But all right, so actually, we have a couple questions that we didn't get to, and one of the questions is, it's more of a statement. So our friend Nathan said he wrote a paper in college about the outfits, the costumes in 13th Warrior, and he said none of them fit the time frame or the location, and he wants to know why.
Well, I think
Well, I did some research and I found out.
Okay, you go. I was going to give my hypothesis, but you want me to give my idea, then we'll see how close it is?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's hear it.
Okay, so when I was in the Canadian Museum and they said Vikings were the first people and they had their display and their clothes there, they were very boring clothes. So I think that the period correct Viking clothing was way too boring and not warrior enough, so they took artistic license to make them look more like warriors.
They said that in a certain amount of words. They just said, we did not go period appropriate. We just did what we felt was right for the film. But they also added this in here, and they said that the disparate armor worn by the Vikings can be explained by the Norse tradition of taking the armor of a vanquished foe. It was also a display of status in Norse society. The nicer the armor, the higher position. Hence, a Bolvice ornate set, and why Helga appears to have a helmet of a Roman gladiator, which he does. So they took those from people. So that's why they don't match up. So like you said, they took artistic license because the outfits were probably pretty boring and they didn't look cool.
Right.
But also Vikings took from, they stole. Like, they pillaged everything.
Yeah, they were just scavengers.
Yeah, and so they had more ornate with higher things, or they took from that. That's why the guy had if you see in the movie, he does have a Roman gladiator helmet. And he probably took that in a battle. So that's why. So they took artistic license, and they also planned on them just having a different look because that's what Vikings did. So that's pretty cool that that's explained.
Yep. I'm behind that 100%.
All right. And
what's the second question?
The next question is, how long did it take for Eben to learn their language?
Okay, so
can we build up the scene? So they're traveling on their way to the boat, correct?
Yeah.
And they probably
they do not like Eben. They hate this guy so far.
They hate Eben, and I think they probably traveled, got on the boat. They probably got out in the water, did some more trips, parked somewhere, did this, that, and the other. So you think it was done in maybe one night?
Well, I'm looking at Eben, and he is a scholar. He's a poet. Like, he studies language. So I think this is really in his wheelhouse. And from what you can tell about language is once you establish the root language, the rest of it is just semantic. Like that's the key. So I think even very quickly, within a day or two, was able to decipher this language.
Oh, wow. I mean, that could be because that scene doesn't really show him moving much. But I guess I got the vibe that they were traveling for a long time. This wasn't like Pirates 3, where in 1 second they're in, 1 second they're in China, the next second they're in the Caribbean, and then the next second they're back in China, and then they're back, then they're in Australia, then they're there. This movie, I felt they traveled for a while. They would take their boat out, and he just listened and he just observed during this long journey. Because let's face it, like these boats, they move fast and they're well equipped, but it would take a while. So I just think over the course of all these different times, he just sat and listened. So they probably thought he was being morose, and they didn't even worry about him. And they're like, he doesn't understand us. So they didn't.
Yeah, he's a simpleton.
Yeah, so I think over that time, he figured it out. And I think what you're saying could happen as well. But for me, I just got that vibe where it had taken a while. And I actually appreciated it because it seems like it would be a pretty long journey to get to where they went.
Right. But I think we can both agree that it is one of 3 of the most BA scenes in this movie, of all movies. Like,
I love it.
It's brilliant.
I listened. And why do people, do you think that's just, when people make fun of scenes because they just make fun of it, do you think this got made fun of because people just think it's a scene that gets made fun of? I liked it a lot.
No, and I think this so when I watched this with my mom, and then the next day I was like, oh, and so some of my friends went to go see it, like with just their friends. I said, like, did you guys love it? Like, it's really good. And again, they were already making fun of that. Oh, I listened. I'm like, the way that was shot, the way that was revealed, he had that moment where he just like put them in their place. I thought it was just like, it showed again, he's doing the right thing. He's caring. He's listening. But he's also like not to be messed with. That's the first hint of like, oh, there's something with this guy you got to watch out for. He's more than meets the eye. He's a transformer.
And I want him. He's Bumblebee. So but I also like as a narrative choice. Remember in that movie Valkyrie when it starts he's writing in German, and then it slowly transitions to English.
Hunt for Red October does the same thing.
Yeah, so I mean, so like that's a good choice. It kind of lets the audience know we know. But this is what we're going to do. And this movie, I think, you started off with the languages. They didn't understand each other. And then not only do you get to switch over to just primarily English, but you also establish the character, that he is observant and he does want to communicate and he does want to keep learning. So it's a twofer. It's good for the narrative and then it's good for the character.
Exactly.
Now,
go ahead.
Oh, no, go.
I was just saying, the way that it was, they did the whispers and the overlay of the English and the Norse language, it was almost musical the way they did that. It was so good.
Yeah, and sometimes there were times where if you quite didn't understand the word, they still used, like, they threw in a random term. So there were, even when they were speaking some English, there were random phrases that weren't quite in English. So maybe he didn't understand that
he wasn't fluent, but he got by.
Yeah, I think that's really, I don't know. I just love that idea. And it was just a smart narrative discussion. So, this movie, I get that the clothes aren't good, but they made that decision and then they made the decision with the I listened. And I have a question. If it wasn't so maligned, would you still like the I listened part as much? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's such a good character moment.
Yeah,
it's such a win for Eben, and you can't take that from him in any way you look at it.
That's like what I think it is one of my favorite characters. You know what? This is really random, and there's probably others, but if I think about it, but one of my favorite character moments ever is in the Bourne Legacy with Jeremy Renner, and they introduced Edward Norton's character by just having him running in the rain at 4 a.m. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't talk. Well, obviously, if he doesn't say anything, he doesn't talk. There's no name tag on him. He's just running in the rain at 4 a.m. Like, what does that tell you about a character, that he can run in the rain at 4 a.m.?
Tells you that one day he yearns to be Tom Cruise.
Yeah, but the dude's driven. He probably has a solid routine.
Yeah, I was going to say he's very regimented.
Yeah, and so just watching a guy run in the rain at 4 a.m. tells you everything you need to know about him. And so I know he says I listened, but that also really builds the character well as far as Banderas goes.
Yep. Absolutely.
I like listening to Vikings talk, though. I wish it would have been all in, Norwegian or What's the Norwegian?
Yeah,